Hi, this is a demonstration for using the GIMP, which is a photo editing software and graphic creation software, and we're going to use the GIMP to make a slide for a service, kind of an advert to play before the service starts. And we're going to start by fetching an image from this website, unsplash.com, which is great. It's got lots of high quality photos and they're freely usable. So there aren't issues with stealing somebody's copyright. So we're going to go into the search box and we're going to be advertising a picnic. So I'm going to type in picnic and you'll see all these images that are tagged with picnic or related to that. One thing we might want to do is to change the orientation to landscape. So you can specify that you only want to see landscape pictures, and that'll suit us because of the screen, the way the screen is laid out in the church. So let's go up there and we pick landscape, and there's a nice image. Let's take that one. I'm going to right click on the image and copy, and then I'm going to go into the GIMP, and instead of creating a new image which will ask me to specify the size of the image in advance, I'm going to just paste as a new image. So that's in the edit menu, paste as new image. It'll take whatever's on the clipboard and put it into the image like that, onto the screen like that. Then we're going to add some text, and to work with the image, a lot of the tools that you'll need are up here in the top left hand corner. So the text tool is this one with the letter A. We click on that. Now we've selected the text tool. At this stage we can already specify the font and the font size and the alignment and all of those kinds of things, but I'm going to start just by dragging a box across the image, and I'm just trying to be careful to center it, to get it middled left horizontally at any rate, and we'll fix up the vertical orientation later. So centering the box, and then clicking inside the box, and I can type some text. So you are invited to a picnic you can RSVP yeah, that's plenty for now. So straight away we can start making some changes. I don't like this black text, I want to make it white. If I just change the text color to white now, nothing will actually change. You'll see if we go in there and click white text, nothing changes because the cursor is sitting at the end of the text, and what it means is now any text I type now will be white, but actually I want to change the text that I've already typed. So I'm going to just click in the text box and drag over the entire piece of text. You could also do this by pressing Control A. We have the same effect, but we select the entire box, and then I'm going to change the color, and then you'll see that the change in color is applied to the selected text. We can also experiment with font sizes, so I'm going to select just that word there, and this picture, this is a bit the font size is squeezed out the top there, but I'm using the scroll wheel to make that one word much bigger. Okay, and then I'd like to make this text at the bottom here smaller, so highlighting that text, let's make it a bit smaller, and let's change the color just of that text. So what I'm showing you is that you can do different operations to different parts of the text, and there we go. So that's fine for our text. I think the one thing we might want to do also is to center align it a bit, so let's bring it down like that. That'll do for now. One thing that is often a problem when you are writing on an image is that if you've got text color that's similar to the background of the image, that the text tends to disappear. So you've got this white text here which is getting lost against that background. There are a couple of ways of solving this problem. One way is to add another layer between the text and the image, and a layer that contrasts well with the color of the text. So in this box down here on the right hand side, you can see the layers in the image, and you can turn off the text layer and you can turn off the background layer, and just you can work with them independently. Whichever layer is highlighted is the one that's active at the moment, is the one that you're working on. So let's add another layer. I'm just going to right click in that box, new layer, and say OK. And now you'll see that layer has been positioned between the image and the text. And if we go and we change the tool now, we're still working with the text tool. If we go and click this one here, which is called the bucket fill tool, click on that, and it's important to notice that this is the foreground color. So that's if we do any operation involving color at the moment, that's the color that will be used. So it's going to be black. We could switch this around if you wanted. If you wanted to do something in white, we could push that little arrow and make that the foreground and this the background. But let's leave it with the foreground color of black. And I'm literally going to make sure that the layer is selected, and then I'm just going to click on the layer and it'll flood the entire layer with black. So you'll see what's happened now. We've got the writing on the top, that's why it's visible. The next layer is black, and we can't see any of the image because this layer is completely opaque. It's not at all see-through. The opacity level is 100%. But if we reduce the opacity, you'll see that the layer becomes more and more transparent, and you can see through to the image below. So I'm just going to scroll down, and we can make it say 70% opaque, and now the black layer has made the white writing clearer because the white writing is sitting on top. You'll see if we were to move that layer down by using that down arrow, then that's what it looked like before. We move it up, and now it sits between the writing and the picture, and now it is right on top. So you don't want to do that, because then the writing is still fading against the white, and all that we've done is add a black haze on the top. So it needs to be between the writing and the layer, like so. Alright, so that's one way of doing it. There's another way of doing it as well, and that is to go and select the text layer. So I've highlighted the text layer, and I'm going to change the, how do I do this? There's this, in the layer menu, there's this option to turn a text to path. And what a path is basically is instead of selecting an entire layer as a block, or a text box as a block, it's going to make the text be recognizable almost like a shape. So if I click text to path, alright, nothing, you can't see that anything's happened, but the nature of that layer has been changed. If I now go to select and I say select from path, you'll see that the selection is around the text itself, not around the whole layer. And when we've done that, what you can do is we can make a new layer. So let's add another layer, and that's on top of the text. Let's move that down one layer, so it's now sitting behind the text, and I'm making sure that I'm working on that layer. What I'm going to do is increase the selection. So in the select menu, I'm going to grow that by, we'll make it very easy to read. We'll make it by 2 pixels. So what I've done is selected an area the same shape as the text but slightly bigger. In fact, if I hide the other 2 layers, you can see clearly what's going on there. And what we're going to do is put we're going to fill that selection with black ink, so that it'll help that white text to contrast more clearly. So I'm going to use the bucket fill tool again, and it's still set on black, and I'm going to click carefully inside part of the selection like that. Alright, now if we put the white writing back on, you'll see what's happened. Because the selection area was slightly bigger than the text, it's put a border around the outside. And then if we put the picture back on, we now have this effect of, I'm going to press Ctrl A to just remove the selection. You have this effect of the text being outlined, and it's nice and easy to read without having to make the picture darker. So that was the dark effect, and this was just using the border. So either way works, but it's quite an important thing to do one way or the other. You need to do something often to make sure that the text contrasts nicely. Your other alternative is to use white text against an image that's predominantly blue or something like that, and then you avoid this needing to do all of this. Alright, let's go and see what else we can do to the image. So the menus, you really just have to go and explore a bit. I tell you what, let's bring in another image, and we can stick it on top of this one so you can see how to work with multiple images. So I'm going to go and open, and I normally open a separate image so I can get the size right before I bring it across. So let's go and open, and I'm going to go into here and find a logo. Yeah, just the graphic logo there. So that image that we've now opened is 209 by 159, and that's probably going to be quite big. But let's have a look and see. I'm going to Control A to select it, Control C to copy it, and then just paste. And if I were to click on that now, you'll see it's still showing the little bucket full icon, because that's the tool we're working with. So we need to change to that move tool. Then I go and click carefully on that image. Oh, it's gone. There we go. And now I can drag it to where I want it to go. So let's go and put it down there at the bottom. I'm going to just go and activate that other layer we had. This is worth seeing. On the right here, you'll see that the image that we've pasted is it's called their floating selection. It's a pasted layer. So what we want to do is just to let that image be treated as a separate layer on its own. So I'm going to right click on that and say to new layer. And now I'm going to come back here and just have a look and see what happens when we darken that. You'll see that the logo is getting lost there, but if we move the logo up one layer, it now stands out quite nice and clearly. I think because we're using that black background, we can probably get rid of the outline, so we can take that away. You could resize this if you wanted to, so we can go back to that. That's the pasted layer there. You can go and click on it. We're going to work with layer, scale the layer. So now we're dealing with a whole layer. We're not, and I can make the width smaller. Let's make it 180. And I can still move it around, of course. Oh, be careful when you're moving it around. Sometimes you'll end up picking up the wrong layer. So I'm going to click carefully on some of the solid part of the image. Now I can drag it around. Let's put it on that side. Alright, so that's bringing in another image. You also could have obviously come back to this where you first brought it in. You could do all kinds of manipulation that you need to on here before you copied it and pasted it into the new window. So let's close that one. We don't need that anymore. Let's go and see what else we can do with the image. I'm on the image layer now. I'm going to go and look at the colors. So if I take out the black layer, another way that I could have changed made the text more readable was to go into the colors and go into this brightness contrast and say let's make it a bit darker. And you see it has a very similar effect to what we did earlier, so that actually might be easier. And you can go down as far as you like. If you get brighter, then it gets harder to read, so maybe we can do that. And then you can say OK or cancel. If you say OK, the effect will be permanent. And so in the colors menu, if you wanted to play with making the image gray, you could black and white. You could click there, and that's the effect that you'd get. Now we probably, if we wanted to keep that, we'd probably need that layer back in to make it more visible. So that's a color effect. Anytime that you've done some work and you want to revert back to something previously, you can always go edit, undo, or just Control Z. So we can go, let's go back to the color picture. And then there are all sorts of effects. You can, they're kind of fancy things that'll, you've got all these, so we can make a canvas effect on the image, for example. So we make sure the right layer is selected, and then if I press that, you'll see it's got a canvasy look now. So we can cancel that. All of these filters they're fun things that you can do. We can cartoonify it. I don't know what that's going to look like. You see the images. The image looks like it's been sketched now. If we cancel it, it'll go back to the previous. Right. So that's colors and filters, and something else that I often find very useful is that you will import an image. So let's undo all of those, and let's just copy this image and paste it into a new image. And maybe I don't want the basket in the picture. So what you can do then is that tool there is the rectangle select tool. You can click like this. I just want the hat and the book and something like that, and highlight the section that I do want, get it just right how I want it, and then you go into image and you can crop to selection. So it just reduces the photo down to the size of your selection box, and then you can work with it. So that's something that I found quite useful, but we don't need to keep that. So I think that's plenty to play with for now. But really exploring the menus helps you find your way around. The last thing we need to do is to save the image. Bear in mind that if you just save it, it's going to offer you an XCF file. So that's the internal GIMP file format, and other programs won't be able to read that format. So you won't be able to paste that into a Word document or anything like that. So only save the file as an XCF file if you intend to come back to it again and again, edit it and rework it. It might be that there's an image that we constantly are using and modifying for various purposes. Then you can save it as a GIMP file. But otherwise, if you're just making a one-off slide, then what I would normally do is, instead of saving it, you export it, and you're going to choose a format. So we could say, let's put it in the pictures folder and call it picnic. And normally it'll offer you a PNG. You could use a JPEG if you prefer, so you could just literally change it like that, and it'll recognize the file format from the name that you use. But let's make that file picnic.png. You press export, it'll give you one more little box, export, and there we go. Now we've created our image. One last thing to be aware of, if you're making it for the screen, sometimes you'll download a massive image from online, and you only need it to be, you never need it to be bigger than 1920 by 1080. That's the HD horizontal dimension. So if the image is 3,800 pixels across, you can happily reduce it down to at least 19, or in fact this size would be fine too, just over 1,000. But if ever you need to change the image size, you can go image, scale image, and we can make that 800, for example, and it'll reduce the whole thing down. It just makes the file slightly smaller and quicker to load on the screen and so on. And if we've made a change, we could then go and export again to that file name or save it as a GIMP file. So I think that is plenty to get you exploring the GIMP. Good luck.